Hey there, pirates. Welcome aboard the Anime No Me channel. Imagine Luffy and the Straw Hats finally reaching Laught Tale after epic battles against Blackbeard in Chapter 1081 and Emu in Chapter 1085, where demonic shadows devour islands. In Chapter 968, Roger laughs upon finding the One Piece, a moment that echoes when Luffy, with Gear 5 shining like the sun god Nika in Chapter 1044, faces the treasure. But instead of chests of gold, they find an ancient relic pulsing with energy, perhaps a glowing sphere or a colossal machine, like the Mother Flame that Vegapunk recreates in Chapter 1069 to vaporize Lulusia. Robin, deciphering a final poneglyph as she does in Chapter 818, reads that the One Piece is an ancient weapon, perhaps Pluton, the island-destroying ship mentioned in Chapter 346 in Water 7, or a new weapon created by the Great Kingdom in Chapter 1115 to fight the 20 Kingdoms. The shock would be immense. Luffy's dream of becoming the Pirate King would come with the power to either sink the world or free it, a burden that even Roger, in Chapter 966, refused to carry, dissolving his crew after Laught Tale. The One Piece being an ancient weapon fits the clues in the manga. In Chapter 1115, Vegapunk reveals that the Great Kingdom was a technological utopia destroyed by the 20 Kingdoms. Now the celestial dragons who feared its inventions, such as the Mother Flame, capable of erasing nations. The ancient weapons Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus are remnants of that kingdom, scattered to prevent their use. Pluton, a warship, lies in Wano, as revealed in Chapter 1053. Poseidon is Shirahoshi, who commands the Sea Kings in Chapter 647, and Uranus, hinted at in Chapter 1060, destroys Lulusia with a heavenly beam. But what if the One Piece is a fourth weapon, or the fusion of all three hidden in Laught Tale to keep Emu, the shadowy puppeteer from Chapter 1085, from using it to perpetuate his reign? Roger, knowing this in Chapter 968, laughed because it was too late. He was dying and couldn't use the power to change the world. But he left the seed for Luffy, the D who carries Joy Boy's will, in Chapter 1043. The nature of the One Piece as a weapon explains why the world government fears it so much. In Chapter 1044, the Gorosei say that Luffy's Hito Hito no Mi model Nika is dangerous for inspiring freedom, but the One Piece would be even worse. It wouldn't just destroy like Pluton. It could unite the seas, like Sanji's dream of the All Blue from Chapter 66, or raise islands, reversing the cataclysmic tsunamis of the Void Century mentioned in Chapter 1115. Imagine the One Piece as a machine that controls climate or geography, capable of sinking Marijoa or raising a new continent, fulfilling the Great Kingdom's wish for freedom. Emu, with Uranus in Chapter 1060, already wields similar power to erase islands. The One Piece would be the counterpart, a weapon that liberates but requires a user with the will of a D like Luffy, who laughs in the face of the impossible in Chapter 1045. Luffy's reaction would be pure One Piece. He would laugh, just like Roger in Chapter 968, shouting, "Ha ha ha, the One Piece is a weapon? Cool, let's use it to throw a worldwide feast." But the weight would soon hit him, like when he lost Ace in Chapter 576. Robin would explain that if misused, the weapon could repeat the Void Century's destruction, sinking islands as in Chapter 1115. Luffy, with his rubber heart, would decide to use it not to destroy, but to unite, just as he does with allies in Chapter 800 with the Grand Fleet. He'd say, "Emu uses weapons to erase. I'll use mine to make everyone laugh." His crew would react with emotion. Zoro would growl, "If it's a weapon, I'll cut down anyone who misuses it." Nami would shout, "It's worth more than gold, but it's dangerous." Usopp would tremble, "A weapon that sinks the world? I'm God Usopp, I can handle it." Sanji would light a cigarette. "If it creates the All Blue, I'll cook for everyone." Robin, calm as ever, would say, "The Great Kingdom entrusted this to the D, Luffy, you're the chosen one." The theory grows stronger with the past. In Chapter 1095, God Valley shows the massacre of the Buccaneers erase, linked to the Great Kingdom, enslaved by the 20 Kingdoms. The One Piece could be the Buccaneers' final creation, like Kuma a weapon, combining the solar technology of the Mother Flame with Nika's will, explaining why Emu fears the D so much in Chapter 1085. Roger, in Chapter 966, knew this, but his illness stopped him from acting. Whitebeard, in Chapter 576, refuse the burden out of love for his family, as hinted in Chapter 563. Luffy, as Joy Boy reincarnated in Chapter 1043, would be the only one capable of using the weapon without being corrupted, because his pure freedom, seen in Chapter 1045 with Gear 5, turns destruction into hope. What would the One Piece do? Maybe unite the seas by destroying the Red Line like Sanji's all-blue dream, or the freedom of the fishmen seen with Jinbei in Chapter 654. In Chapter 1115, Vegapunk says the world is sinking due to the Void Century's tsunamis. The One Piece could reverse that, raising islands or creating a new continent, fulfilling Nami's dream of mapping the world from Chapter 95. But the risk is huge. Using it could draw Imu's wrath, as seen in Chapter 1060 with Lulusia, or repeat the war that destroyed the Great Kingdom. Luffy, with his Conqueror's Haki in Chapter 1010, would face this dilemma, choosing to use the One Piece not for war, but for freedom, as he does in Dressrosa in Chapter 758, inspiring nations. Blackbeard then enters as a threat. In Chapter 1081, he hunts poneglyphs, and his Yami Yami no Mi, which nullifies devil fruits in Chapter 441, could attempt to absorb the One Piece, corrupting its power. Luffy, with Nika, would face Teach in an epic duel like Roger versus Whitebeard in Chapter 966, with Solar Fists against Abyssal Darkness, deciding who controls the weapon. Luffy would shout, "Teach, you want to destroy? My One Piece will make everyone laugh." Teach, laughing back, would answer, "Boy, darkness devours your sun." It would be a clash that splits the sky with the fate of the world at stake. The world government fears this because the One Piece as a weapon would expose the Void Century, just like Vegapunk does in Chapter 1115. Imu, with Uranus, keeps power by erasing islands. The One Piece would defy that, allowing Luffy to topple Marijoa, as seen in Chapter 1085, where Imu's shadows reign. In Chapter 1044, the Gorosei fear Nika for his freedom, but the One Piece, as a weapon, would be the key to that revolution, explaining why they kept Luffy's fruit hidden for 800 years. When Luffy activates the weapon, he could unite the seas, fulfilling dreams like Sanji's and Nami's, but he would also face a cost, perhaps a sacrifice like Whitebeard feared in Chapter 576, or risking the world itself. The story would be epic. Luffy, standing in Laught Tale before the weapon, would laugh like in Chapter 1045, but feel the weight, as he did with Ace in Chapter 576. He would decide, "I won't sink the world, I'll make it bigger," using Nika and his Conqueror's Haki. He would activate the One Piece to raise islands, unite people, and topple Imu, completing Joy Boy's unfinished dream from Chapter 1043. The crew would stand with him, Robin reading the final poneglyph, Frankie protecting the Sunny, Zoro cutting down any threat, and Sanji cooking a feast for the world. The ending would show Luffy, his straw hat shining, sailing across a unified sea, laughing, "I'm the Pirate King. The world is free now." This theory is explosive because it connects everything. The One Piece, as an ancient weapon, explains Imu's fear, Roger's laughter, and Luffy's destiny as Nika. It would be amazing to see Luffy, with rubber fists and laughter, turn a weapon of destruction into a tool of freedom, proving that the true treasure is the world he sets free. Straw Hats would gather before the One Piece, now revealed as a weapon of immense power, capable of shaping the very fate of the world. Luffy, with the glow of Gear 5, would face the relic with a cheeky smile, unshaken by the weight of his responsibility. Joy Boy's laughter would resonate once more, echoing like a flame of freedom that could never be extinguished. Yet doubt lingered in the air. What should be done with this weapon, capable of sinking or raising islands, of uniting or destroying the seas? Luffy, with his unwavering determination, would make the only choice possible: to use it to unite, not destroy. "Let's make the world laugh," Luffy would shout, his voice full of conviction, as he activated the power of the One Piece with his Conqueror's Haki. He knew that the greatest treasure was not material wealth, but the freedom that his crew and the world could achieve if the weapon were used correctly. The light of the One Piece would spread, reshaping the world's geography. The Red Line would be destroyed, the seas would unite, and new continents would emerge, heralding a new era of prosperity and unity. But the resistance of Imu and the world government would be fierce. The final confrontation between Luffy and Blackbeard, representing the forces of destruction and freedom, would be an epic clash of ideals. Sun against darkness, the battle would tear through the skies as if the very fate of the world hung in the balance. Blackbeard, with his Yami Yami no Mi, would attempt to absorb the power of the One Piece, corrupting it, while Luffy, with Nika, would resist and transform the power into something only he could control. "You want to destroy, Teach? My One Piece will make everyone laugh," Luffy would shout, his energy erupting into a final blow that would light up the sky, turning the battle into a cathartic explosion of freedom and hope. Luffy's victory would not come without cost. The sacrifice of Ace would still weigh on him, a reminder of the price of freedom and love. But like Roger, who laughed at the end of his journey knowing he could not change the world alone, Luffy would make his own choice. He would not use the One Piece to rule, but to free to liberate the oppressed and break the chains that kept the world in submission. After the victory, Luffy and his crew would face a new world. The power of the One Piece would unite the seas, destroy the Red Line, and open new paths for everyone. But the true journey would only be beginning. Each Straw Hat would follow their own destiny, fulfilling their personal dreams, yet always with the promise that they would reunite like a family under the free sky. Luffy's final act would be his greatest victory, achieving his dream of becoming the Pirate King, but more importantly, liberating an entire world where everyone could finally live free. The world is free now, he would say, as the Sunny sailed across a unified sea, ready for new adventures just as it always should be. And so, Luffy's final smile, the Pirate King, shone like the sun. The story of the Straw Hats would become legend, not because they conquered the world, but because they freed it forever. That was today's content. We hope you liked it and want to share your opinion on the subject. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay amazing.